line is missing in the question. So what he's telling, so a 50 hertz 4-pole 500 MVA generator is delivering its rated MVA at a 0.8 power factor. Suddenly a fault occurs in the load such that the load reduces by 40%. Suddenly a fault occurs which reduces the load on machine by 40%. Okay. In this condition, what is the accelerating torque on the generator? When suddenly a fault occurs, suddenly load reduces, what is the accelerating torque on the generator? That is the question. Okay. Now, gentlemen, this is a prime mover which is supplying mechanical input to the generator, and this generator is supplying electrical power. So what is the input to the synchronous machine? Shaft power, mechanical power. What is the output? Electrical power. Understand? So machine will operate at constant RPM or constant angular velocity when both these values are equal. Okay. So initially, before fault, how my system is operating? What is the electrical output of the machine before fault? Your PE is electrical output of synchronous machine is the machine is delivering 500 MVA. It's a full rated volt amperes at a 0.8 power factor. So electrical output will become 500 into 0.8, 400 megawatt. The electrical output of the machine is 400 megawatt. So what is the load demand? 400 megawatt. So the load on the mesh system before fault is 400 megawatt. What is the shaft power? 400 megawatt. Okay. What is P? 400 megawatt. Since we are neglecting the losses. Okay. Machine is stably operating, no problem. Suddenly, because of some disturbance, some fault, the load reduced by 40%. The load on the machine reduced by 40%. 40% load reduction means what? Tell me. 40% load reduction means load reduced from 400 megawatt to 40% reduction means how much is left out? 60%. 60% of 400 megawatt is how much? 240 megawatt. I'm sorry. 240 megawatt. Okay. So there is no change in the mechanical input because practically also it will not change. Why? Because the steam governor will take some time. So accelerating power on the shaft is how much? Mechanical input minus electrical output of the machine. Electrical output of the machine. So mechanical input is constant at 400 megawatts, whereas electrical output suddenly because of fault reduced to 240 megawatt. Okay, so this 160 megawatt of power is accelerating your rotor. So this is the accelerating power. That is shaft power minus electrical output of generator. Understand? Now, he is not asking the accelerating power, but he is asking the accelerating torque. So accelerating power is given by accelerating torque into angular velocity of the rotor. So angular velocity is given by, never ever write 2 pi f. No. Electrical angular velocity you can write. If you write 2 pi f, here the unit should be electrical radians per second. Very, very important point. Listen carefully. When I write omega r is equal to 2 pi f, where f is the frequency, then the unit should be electrical radians per second. But when you are dealing with the power and the torque in Newton meter, you should deal with the mechanical omega. So mechanical omega r is given by Can anyone tell me? Pn by if, omega
Pn
is
by 120, sir.
no, f is Pn by 120.
Yes.
Omega is 2 pi nr by 60. 2 pi nr by 60. Nr is also not given. Nr is given by 120 f by p. For synchronous machine, 120 f by p. So 120 into 50 divided by number of poles of machine is 4. So how much you are going to get this one? 1500. So if you are very good at machines, you can directly tell what is the synchronous RPM for 2-pole machine, 3000 RPM, 4-pole machine, 1500, 8-pole, 750. So you should know these values. How to calculate? This is the formula. This is the RPM of that machine. So this is 2 pi into 1500 divided by 60. How much is this value? 150 divided by 6. How much it will become? 25. So 25 into this one is 50 pi. Understand? So many mechanical radians per second. Mechanical radians per second. So there is a difference between mechanical radians and electrical radians. So if you want electrical radians, you can directly write 2 pi f, which you will get it as 100 pi. Whereas mechanical radians, its value is 50 pi. Why? Because that next slide I will tell the relation. Otherwise, this question will get digressed. So you now know the angular velocity of omega r. So from this, what you can write? Accelerating torque is given by accelerating power divided by omega r. This value will become PA is 160 megawatt divided by this value is 50 pi mechanical radians per second. If you divide this value, how much you are going to get? 160 divided by 50 pi, you are going to get this one, 1.018. Since here the numerator is in megawatt, it will become mega Newton meter. So 1.018 mega Newton per meter will be the accelerating torque on the rotor. Understand? So, sir, why there is a difference? Electrical displacement, if you have studied machines well, suppose let me take a 4-pole machine. Just bear with me. Suppose this is north pole, this is south pole, this is north pole, and this is south. Okay. The mechanical displacement from one pole to other pole is how much? 90 degrees. Actual physical displacement, mechanical displacement is 90 degrees. However, in electrical system, when you move from one pole to the other pole, opposite pole, the electrical displacement is 180 degrees. Electrical angular displacement is 180 degrees. So, if there are only 2 poles in a machine, so one is north pole, the other one is south pole, then your electrical displacement and mechanical displacement will match. Theta electrical is equals to theta mechanical. But in multipole machines, the formula will become theta electrical will become P by 2 times theta mechanical, where P is the number of poles in the machine. Okay, so theta E is given by P by 2 into theta mechanical. That's why in the previous case, number of poles were 4. So theta electrical will become 2 times theta mechanical. So if you differentiate this one, you are going to get omega r electrical is equals to again 2 times into omega r mechanical. Understand? Okay. So similarly, even if you do for angular acceleration also, it will become P by 2. So you have to remember theta electrical is equals to P by 2 into theta mechanical. Similarly, omega r electrical, that is electrical angular velocity, is also given by P by 2 into mechanical angular velocity. And even electrical angular acceleration is equals to P by 2 into mechanical angular acceleration. Okay. So this concept you must remember. Any doubt in this one, gentlemen?
No, sir.
A generator with constant 1 per unit terminal voltage supplies power through a step-up transformer of reactance J 0.12 per unit and a double circuit line to an infinite bus bar. Infinite bus bar means by default you can write 1 at an angle 0. Neglecting the resistance and susceptance of the system, the steady state, the voltage of the terminal voltage of the generator is fixed at 1 at an angle 1 delta, let us call delta. The reactance of the transformer is J 0.2 per unit. The reactance of each line is Jx and Jx. Okay. Now the steady state stability limit of the system is 6.2 per unit. So he's telling for this system the steady state stability limit is 6.25 per unit. If one of the double circuit line is stripped, that means if one of the line gets opened, then the resulting steady state power, steady state stability power limit is. So he's asking, if one of the transmission line gets stripped or it is removed, then what is the steady state stability limit? Very simple question. So let us calculate the steady state stability limit for the given case. So here, what is the transfer reactance? Because we know voltage at this bus bar and we know voltage at this bus bar. So what is the transfer reactance between these two bus bars? Because we know the voltage magnitudes of both of them, we need to compute the transfer reactance. So for calculating transfer reactance, you have to calculate the parallel equivalent of this one and add to this one. So X transfer in the first case will become 0.12 plus X by 2. 0.12 plus X by 2, since both lines are in parallel. Then steady stability limit in first case is given by 6.25, that is equals to sending end voltage magnitude is 1, receiving end infinite busbar voltage magnitude is also 1, transfer reactance is 0.12 plus X by 2. This value is equals to 6.25. 6.25. Okay. Now, in this case, which implies 0.12 plus X by 2 is equals to 1 divided by 6.25. 1 divided by 6.25 is how much?
1 divided by 6.25.
0.16. 0.16. So 0.16 is equals to this one. So from this you are going to get X by 2 is how much? 0.04, which implies your transfer reactance value is 0.08 per unit. So transmission line reactance is 0.08 per unit. Now if you remove one of the transmission lines, if you completely eliminate one of the transmission lines, then the transfer reactance in this case will become how much? It is directly series, we have to add these two, one J 0.12 plus X, that is equals to J 0.12 plus J 0.08. J you can remove because we have not kept here. So this will become 0.2 per unit. Now the steady state stability limit in second case will become sending end voltage 1, receiving end voltage 1, transfer reactance 0.2, transfer reactance 0.2. So the value will become 5 per unit. The value will become 5 per unit. So 5 per unit is the steady state stability limit in this question when one of the transmission lines. So next we'll study transient stability. Transient stability. So it is the ability of synchronous machine to deliver maximum power to the load when it is subjected to, without losing synchronism, when it is subjected to sudden and large disturbance for a few cycles only. Okay, so here the point is transient stability analysis is carried out when the disturbance on the machine is sudden and large. We already discussed the faults because the sudden and large disturbance occurs mainly because of the short circuit faults at the terminals of synchronous machine, in the parallel transmission lines, in the bus bars. Okay, so when the fault occurs, what happens majorly? What will happen? The load demand will drastically decrease. The load demand will drastically decrease. So we have seen in the one of the examples, when the load demand drastically reduces, the accelerating power on the shaft of the alternator increases enormously. So when this accelerates the rotor acceleration is such a higher that it will rotate at dangerous speeds and the frequency will overshoot. Understand? So this sudden large disturbance will change the load demand drastically, which will lead to either acceleration or deacceleration of the rotor of synchronous machine, which is dangerous. Okay, here why I am telling over few cycles only, the disturbance is such a large that the damper windings or whatever internal mechanism will not this one. We need immediately some corrective action. Either from speed governor system, or that fault should be cleared by the relay and circuit breaker combination. Then only the system can retain stability. If nothing happens, the machine will definitely lose the stability. So transient stability we will only analyze for few cycles. We are assuming that after few cycles means maximum 5 cycles. 5 cycles after fault. 5 cycles means 50 cycles will make 1 second. So 5 cycles means 0.1 second. So the corrective action should happen within 0.1 second or 0.2 second for the system to retain stability. If no corrective action happens within this time, the machine will definitely lose the stability. Understand? So it is the ability of synchronous machine to transfer maximum power to the load without losing synchronism when it is subjected to sudden and large disturbance over a few cycles only. Because if the no corrective action happens within few cycles, the machine will definitely lose the stability. Okay. So the next point is, again, suppose if you take a generator, see, every time I am writing a single generator, you don't think that it is a single generator. When number of machines in running in parallel, I can add all those machines into a single big machine. Understand? So if I am writing single generator, it means not a single generator, but all the generators that are running in parallel in that generating station or in that region. Okay. So now, if this is the bus bar of the generator, then number of transmission lines will be connected in parallel to this bus bars. Why? Because if I only connect one transmission line, what is the danger here? If suppose there is some fault in this line, if there is some short circuit fault somewhere here, So here the circuit breaker, which is operating in coordination with the relay, it will trip this one. So once this is tripped, the complete generator, which is having a shaft power of PS and electrical output of the machine is 0. So this complete PS minus 0 will act as my accelerating power, which will be a huge accelerating power, which will definitely make my system unstable. Suppose if I connect more transmission lines in parallel, what will happen? So let us assume there are 3 transmission lines that are connected to the generating station bus bar. 3 transmission lines. Okay. So the load on each of them, let us assume it is 100 megawatt load on this transmission line, 100 megawatt load on this transmission line, 100 megawatt load on this transmission. So the total electrical output of the generator will be how much? 300 megawatt. What is the shaft power? 300 megawatt. Okay. Now, if there is a fault in one of the transmission lines, then the real power flowing into the fault is 0, gentlemen. Always remember, because fault currents are purely inductive. So fault will not consume any real power. It only consumes reactive power. So the real power flowing to the load when the fault occurs is 0 megawatt. The fault current will flow like this, which is purely inductive. Now, what is the accelerating power in this case? The accelerating power in this case is the shaft power is 300 megawatt, that is coming from turbine, prime mover, and electrical output is 200 megawatt. So here the accelerating power is 100 megawatt. There is a chance to retain stability. Because my accelerating power is only 100 megawatt. But suppose if I keep only one transmission line whose loading is 300 megawatt, if it goes in fault, then my accelerating power will be 300 megawatt. Then the chances of stability are very, very less. So that's why for stability reasons, we always connect the generating station with a number of parallel transmission lines. More is the lines, better is the stability. Why? Because if the fault occurs in any one of the lines, then remaining lines will carry the power, so accelerating power is less. Suppose if the fault occurs at the bus bar, before the bus bar, then we cannot do anything. The total accelerating power will be shaft power. Okay, so the point is a generator bus bar will be connected with more than one transmission line in parallel for stability reasons. During three-phase fault, the power transferred to load is 0. Suppose if the three-phase fault occurs here in this third line, then power transferred to load, because the total current will flow into the fault. What is the current flowing to the load? Current flowing to the load is 0 ampere. So power transfer to the load is also 0. And the fault also will not absorb any real power because it is purely inductive current, fault current. So the real power will not be absorbed by the fault. Okay. The last important point is, due to sudden large disturbance, the oscillations made by the rotor have large amplitude. These oscillations cannot be dampened out by damper windings. So damper windings are not good enough to retain the stability. If there is a small disturbance, then damper windings will help. But since the disturbance is large, the damper windings cannot retain stability. So to analyze the steady state, to analyze the transient stability, we consider the dynamic model of rotor. Whereas in steady state stability, we have considered the static model of synchronous machine, stator model. Here we consider the rotor model of the synchronous machine. Okay. Next is swing equation. Okay. Now, again going into the mechanics which we have learned yesterday. So PS is the shaft power that is coming from the prime mover. Tau S is the shaft torque which is trying to rotate the rotor in clockwise direction. Omega R is the rotor angular velocity in mechanical radians per second. And somebody has this one, any doubt? No noise from you, Hari Ramesh. No noise. So, yeah, this tau E is the electromagnetic torque. Some people call it as tau EM, electromagnetic torque, which is equivalent to the load connected to the generator, which will try to rotate this rotor in the anti-clockwise direction. So it is a tug of war between tau S and tau E. Okay, if both are equal, we are happy. The net torque on the shaft of the rotor is 0, and my rotor rotates with constant angular velocity, and my frequency is constant. Okay, so PS is the shaft power, PE is the electrical output. So PA is given by net accelerating power is given by shaft power minus electrical output of the machine. Understand? Now, PA I can write it as tau A, accelerating torque into angular velocity. This one I'm writing it as shaft torque into angular velocity minus electrical torque into angular velocity. Why? Because the rotor is rotating with angular velocity of omega, which is constant. So tau A is equals to shaft torque minus electromagnetic torque, the net accelerating torque acting on this one. So as long as these two torques are equal and opposite, the net torque will be 0. As long as the shaft torque and electromagnetic torque both are equal and opposite, the net torque on the shaft is 0, and the rotor is rotating with constant. Omega R is constant, and my frequency is constant. Okay, but when there is a sudden change in the load, suppose my load suddenly decreases or suddenly it increases, what will happen? There is a sudden change in PE. Because PE and PD are same. So because of this load fluctuations, what will happen? My PA can either become positive or negative. My net accelerating power will become either positive or negative. So which will tend to rotate my shaft, which will tend to accelerate or deaccelerate my shaft, which will alter omega R and frequency. Okay. So if there are load fluctuations, then this electromagnetic torque is disturbed. That is, if load demand that is equals to P, if it increases, then my tau E will increase, which results in tau A becoming negative. Deaccelerating, the net torque will be deaccelerating torque. Understand? If load suddenly decreases because of some fault or anything, then electromagnetic torque decreases, then my tau A becomes positive, which will accelerating, the net torque is accelerating torque. Understand? Okay, so now how the rotor speed is affected because of this load disturbances is modeled by a swing equation. Swing equation describes the fluctuations or oscillations made by the rotor with respect to stator magnetic field when it is subjected to load disturbances. When it is subjected to load disturbances, that is the swing equation. That is the swing equation. The net torque is given by moment of inertia of the rotor into angular acceleration. Okay, so here net torque is given by J into d square theta mechanical divided by dt square. Net accelerating torque on the machine is given by moment of inertia of the rotor divided into d square theta m by dt square. Okay. If we multiply both sides with rotor, this one, tau a into omega r will become j into omega r into d square theta m by dt square. Okay, tau into omega r is the accelerating power on the shaft of rotor, that is given by j into omega r. If you consider the linear motion, j is equivalent to mass, omega r is equivalent to velocity. What is mass into velocity? Mass into velocity is called momentum. Mass into velocity is called momentum. So this will become angular momentum into d square theta by dt square. Angular momentum, mechanical angular momentum into d square theta m by dt square. Okay. Now, if I write the same thing, PA is equals to the accelerating power on the shaft is equals to, rather than writing in terms of mechanical terms, if I write in terms of electrical, this one, so omega r electrical will become 2 by P into, since it is omega r mechanical, so I can write it as omega r electrical is equals to 2 by P, and one more 2 by P will come because I am converting d square theta electrical by dt square. So I am converting both mechanical displacement into electrical displacement, mechanical angular velocity into electrical angular velocity, and this J will come. So here 2 by P square into moment of inertia into angular velocity in electrical radians per second into d square theta electrical radians divided by dt square. So this term is called electrical angular momentum into d square theta e by dt square. So some textbooks call this m as inertia constant, or we can call this one as rotor angular momentum. Okay, understand? Now, theta electrical displacement from this one, theta e is the electrical displacement. How we have defined theta e? This is a reference axis. Okay, and this is the stator magnetic field axis. The stator magnetic field always rotates with constant angular velocity, which is omega s. Now you can write omega s is equals to 2 pi f, because 2 pi f electrical radians per second. So the stator magnetic field always rotates with constant angular velocity in anti-clockwise direction with this much 2 pi f electrical radians per second. The rotor and rotor magnetic field both are rotating with omega r, okay, and rotor magnetic field leads the stator magnetic field by an angle delta t, rotor field leads, the stator magnetic field will lag. When pa is 0, when there is no accelerating power on the shaft of the rotor, when the net accelerating power is 0, then rotor angular velocity is equals to stator field angular velocity. Both are equals to 2 pi f radians per second. 2 pi f radians per second. And the angle between them, that is delta, is a constant value. Delta of t is constant. When there is no accelerating power on the shaft of the rotor, when electrical output is equals to mechanical input, then net accelerating power is 0. Then rotor angular velocity is equals to stator magnetic field angular velocity, which is equals to 2 pi f electrical radians per second. And the angle between them, delta of t, is constant. Okay. However, when there is a disturbance, the PA is non-zero, either it is positive or negative, then my rotor omega r, either it will increase or decrease depending upon either acceleration or deacceleration. So this rotor field is fluctuating, is making oscillations with respect to stator field, These fluctuations are expressed, the fluctuations made by the, or the oscillations made by the rotor magnetic field with respect to stator magnetic field is expressed by swing equation, So with respect to reference, I can say with respect to reference, stator magnetic field is making, with respect to reference, stator magnetic field is rotating, let us call it is rotating at an angular velocity of omega x into t. The displacement between reference axis and stator field is, let us call omega x into t. Okay. Now, the displacement of rotor with respect to reference axis is theta electrical. So now if you differentiate theta, if you write theta electrical equation, theta electrical will become omega x into t plus delta of t from the figure. Okay. So if you differentiate one time d theta e by dtt, it will become omega x plus d delta of t by dt. If you differentiate two times, d square theta e by dt square, d square theta e by dt square, you are going to get omega x is a constant, so 0 plus d squared delta of t by dt square, d square delta of t by dt square. So if you substitute here, you are going to get what? D square theta e by dt square is equals to d square delta of t by dt square, which implies your swing equation will become m into d square delta of t by dt square, d square delta of t by dt square. So this is the swing equation. PA, the net accelerating power on the shaft of the rotor is equals to m rotor angular momentum into d square delta of t by dt square. That is the swing equation. Okay. Now, the swing equation describes oscillations made by the rotor magnetic field. Rotor magnetic field and rotor are aligned. How? Because here they have written rotor in this fashion, but rotor magnetic field and rotor will be like this. Your rotor will be like this, where the field windings are connected. In this fashion. So For this field windings, you give the DC voltage. So that means why your magnetic field is rotating, because you pass a DC current through this field, it will produce a constant field. Because your rotor is rotating, your rotor magnetic field is also rotating. So the axis of rotor and rotor magnetic field both will be same. Okay. So coming back to here, swing equation describes oscillations made by the rotor magnetic field within bracket rotor with respect to stator magnetic field as a function of time. As a function of time, when load on the synchronous machine is subjected to disturbance. When the load is subject to disturbance, when there is no load fluctuation, it does not make any oscillations. The delta of t is constant. Okay. If you can see, it is a second order nonlinear differential equation. It is a second order nonlinear differential equation. Okay. Why it is a nonlinear differential equation? I'll simply just tell you. M into d square delta of t by dt square is equals to PA. PA is equals to shaft power minus the receiving end power is given by mod Vs into mod Vr divided by mod Xt into sine delta. Okay. The variable of differentiation is delta of t. The dependent variable in this equation is delta of t. Independent variable is time. The forcing function, the right hand term is called forcing function. If there is your forcing function is 0, it is called homogeneous differential equation. That means if md square delta of t by dt square equal to 0, then it is a second order homogeneous differential equation. Only you will get the transient response. Only you will get the complementary function. Since you have some forcing function, you will get complementary function as well as particular integral. The point here why it becomes nonlinear, the dependent variable delta of t is present in forcing function. So which makes it a nonlinear differential equation. Because this delta of t term should not be present. The forcing function can be function of time. It can be a function of time, but it should not be a function of the dependent variable. Then it becomes a nonlinear differential equation. I hope your maths sir will teach. So it is a second order. Why? Because d square delta by dt square, it is a second order nonlinear differential equation. Here d delta by d term is missing. Because we have not modeled the damper windings in the swing equation. Had we modeled the damper windings, then d delta by dt, the damping term, the first derivative term is damping term, comes into picture. If you study control system, always s square plus 2 delta omega ns, that is the s term is a damping term. That is d by dt term is a damping term which is missing. Why? Because we have not modeled the damper windings. Okay. Now, before going into inertia constant, again coming back to this swing equation, m is equals to d square delta of t by dt square, which is accelerating power. Okay. Now, what is the unit of accelerating power? Megawatt. What is the unit of angular momentum? That is my interest, which implies m is equals to PA divided by d square delta of t by dt square. Here the unit of this one is megawatt. The unit of the denominator term is electrical radians per second square. So the unit of angular momentum or inertia constant is megawatt divided by electrical radians per second square. If I take this second to the numerator, it will become megawatt second square divided by electrical radians. So megawatt into second is joule. Watt into second is joule, because power multiplied by time is energy. So this will become megajoule. One more second is there, megajoule second per electrical radians. So the unit of m is unit of angular momentum is megajoule second by electrical radians. Understand? Now, the second important point is, okay, let us complete inertia constant and go back. So for now, you remember this unit of angular momentum is megajoule second by electrical radians. Okay. One more term, H is also called inertia constant. That's why it is better to call M as angular momentum and H as inertia constant. But many international textbooks tells both H as inertia constant and M also as inertia constant. So then how to find out the difference? You look at the unit. You look at the unit of them. So then you will find out whether it is H or M. So H is defined as the ratio of kinetic energy stored in the rotor divided by the MVA rating of the machine. So the ratio of kinetic energy stored in the machine is J into omega r square half into J into omega r square, so many megajoules divided by rating of the machine is say S in MVA. So H is defined as kinetic energy stored in rotor. You should write at synchronous speed. At synchronous speed. So you should write here omega S. H is defined as the ratio of kinetic energy stored in the rotor at synchronous speed divided by the MVA rating of the machine. So half into J omega S square divided by S. So many megajoules per MVA. Unit is megajoules per MVA. Okay. Now SH will become half into J omega S square. So when you multiply S into H, you are going to get the kinetic energy stored in rotor. Kinetic energy stored in rotor at synchronous speed. Understand? Now, if you cross multiply these things, 2SH is equals to J into omega S into omega S. If you simplify this further, 2SH by omega S is equals to omega S into J. Omega S into J. So omega S into J will become what? Angular momentum M is equals to, you're going to get 2SH divided by 2 pi F. So 2 cancel, which implies angular momentum or inertia constant, one more inertia constant is given by SH by pi F. SH by pi F. Again, what is the unit of SH? Megajoules. Energy stored is megajoules. What is the unit of pi? Electrical radians. What is the unit of F? Hertz. 1 by F is second. So megajoule second per electrical radian. So angular momentum or inertia constant is given by one more formula, SH divided by pi F. Or in other terms, if you take pi as 180 degrees, you are going to get SH divided by 180 degrees into F. So many megajoule per second by electrical degrees. Electrical degrees. Understand? So this is one more formula for inertia constant or angular momentum, where if the unit is in electrical radians, you have to use this formula. If it is in degrees, you have to use this formula. Okay. M per unit is defined as M actual divided by rating of machine. So that is equals to H divided by pi F is the per unit value of angular momentum. Per unit value of angular momentum or per unit value of inertia constant, whose unit is given by second square by electrical radians. Second square by electrical radians. Okay. Next. Any doubt so far? I have not done anything. I have just defined inertia constant. H is given by kinetic energy stored in rotor at synchronous speed divided by MVA rating of machine. So SH will give you product of S into H will give you the kinetic energy stored in rotor at synchronous speed. So from this I have done simple manipulations. I got one more formula for angular momentum or inertia constant, which is SH divided by pi f when the unit is in electrical radian, SH divided by 180 into F when the unit is in electrical degrees. Okay, so the per unit value of angular momentum or inertia constant is defined by actual value divided by the MVA rating of the machine. It will become H divided by pi F, whose unit is second square by electrical radians. Second square by electrical radians. Okay. One more point which I forgot to tell here is H is equals to megajoules per MVA. So megajoules, I can write it as megawatt into second divided by megavolt ampere. Okay. Dimensionally, watt is also product of volt into ampere. Mega cancel. Watt means voltage into current. Volt ampere also means voltage into current. So if this both cancel, the unit of H is second. The units of inertia constant is second. Unit of H. Either you can write it as megajoules per MVA. The other directly we can write it as second. Second is the other because megajoules per MVA unit is second. Okay, that's why here H value is how much? Second. Pi value is electrical radians. 1 by F value is also second. So second square by electrical radians is a unit of M per unit. M per unit.